morning. Thank you for coming this morning. Thank you for joining us. This is a wonderful time of the year to be together and to really feel the spirit of life. As we become more attracted to the media, to newspapers, to CNN, CBS, ABC, and all the other, news media, we become so immersed in what's going on in the world today. Typically, our major television stations seem to focus on the worst, that's going on. And I don't know about you, but I know for me, I feel so depressed afterwards. So what I'm looking forward to tonight, if you live in this country, even if you don't, CNN is on all over the world. Even when I go to London, the one station I'm sure I can get is CNN. They're going to be celebrating the heroes of this year. So that's something to really look forward to, because that's what's important, not the program itself, but what it's representing. These wonderful, beautiful, self-sacrificing individuals, what they're doing for the world, what they're doing for the third world countries, what they're doing for children. And in doing and engaging in sacrificial service, they're learning about the spirit of life, not about their bank account, not about their accumulation of friends, but what is real. And when I was thinking of the meditation this morning about the divine light, the divine love, the divine power, it's there. The opposite is also there. Light which appears to be light, but which is corrupt. Love which appears to be love, which is self-centered. And power which appears to be as power, but in fact is evil. So now is the time for all disciples of the world today to truly gather in the light, the true light, and love, and true love, and power, which is the power of spirit, to gather together. And let's bring in the whole purpose of life. Bring the purpose back into humanity, back into society. Because if we don't do this, negativity, for some strange reason, darkness seems to hold power over the minds of men. But not in the world of discipleship. See, in the world of discipleship are those individuals that understand the purpose of life and that are in contact with the light and love of Christ. We have to bring that light into the world and not let the darkness overshadow our own thinking and actions and behaviors. So this morning, I'm going to be talking about meditation and the soul. Meditation has become increasingly accepted today as a very positive input in a person's life. When I first learned about meditation, it was actually considered an Eastern practice, always associated with Buddhism, always associated with yoga. But then, years later, the public began to hear about meditation to improve their health. And by that time, physicians were encouraging their patients to practice, and they still are, to practice various forms of meditation to calm their mind, to heal their body, and so forth. But that's not the kind of meditation that I'm going to talk about this morning. This morning, we're going to discuss how to approach our soul through meditation. See, and this is not a meditation that your doctor is even legally allowed to talk to you about. See, or your psychotherapist, or your psychologist. They're not allowed to mix that, but we are. So we're going to talk about meditation this morning in relationship to our soul, because that's so important. This approach to meditation takes concentration. It takes discipline. And this might surprise you, but it also takes a desire to have contact with the higher worlds, the higher spheres of consciousness. Concentration, discipline, and a desire to have contact with higher spheres of consciousness. Yet this process is not really so new. Many of us were engaged with this path of discipline, concentration, meditation, contemplation in previous lives. So when we came into this particular incarnation, meditation was not something outside of ourselves, but a discipline, a spiritual discipline that was and is an inherent part of our consciousness. I know this to be true from my own experiences from the time I was 3 years old on up through now that I'm 30. Everyone here is laughing. Well, 35, okay. An inherent part of our consciousness. That means that whether we're 3 or 30 or 35 or whatever, if you are a meditator, you are a person who thinks in the light of your soul. If you have made this contact, if you have not, the kind of meditation that we teach in the Ageless Wisdom will put you in contact with your soul. If you have concentration, discipline, and a desire to make contact with these higher spheres of consciousness. Meditation has a goal. The goal of meditation is a progressive awakening into your higher self, a progressive awakening into your higher self. This is a continuous process until at some moment, and that moment may be just momentary and once in this life, but it will, life after life, increase and expand until your awareness merges with an awareness of the whole. We see this today. Most people's awareness of the whole is awareness of me. Not me, you. You know, the me self, right? And sometimes that circle of awareness will expand a little bit to my family. But God help you if you end up being a blended family. Oh boy, that's when the trouble begins. You know, and then we have many, many divisions and separations and relationship problems and so forth. Imagine the person who has an awareness now where they are totally merged with the wholeness of life, which is the wholeness of the universe, the wholeness of humanity. Imagine. So, moving on, there are various kinds of approaches to meditation. And this particular approach, the approach that I'm wrapped up in wires down here, tethered. Anyway, this particular approach that I'm talking about this morning is called the soul approach, which is selfless, and it helps us concentrate on our future. In rare cases, some people have had the experiences of merging into the light of greater experience with the higher worlds, like Helena and Nicholas Rourke and others. But these experiences are still a bit uncommon. Keep in mind, though, keep this in mind because it's so important. As the consciousness of mankind continues to evolve, especially in the light of discipleship, being a soul-infused personality will become less and less unusual, less and less uncommon. Soul infusion is our present challenge. But once achieved, the next step is going to be constructing the next bridge of consciousness, a bridge between our higher mind and the Buddhic body. When our consciousness builds this little tiny bridge, and we move into this higher mind and the Buddhic body, we're going to be functioning in this, what we call the spiritual triad. First, we are identified with our personality life. That's all there is. That's the me, me, me. Sometimes my family life. But that's the first stage of consciousness. The personality life is a life lived in our physical, emotional, and lower mental bodies. And boy, do we feel comfortable at this stage. We think we feel comfortable until life turns upside down, and then we don't know what is going on in our life. But in fact, and eventually this is a good thing, because we then become uncomfortable with our existence, and we begin to grow or outgrow that stage, grow out of that stage. You know, I've talked in the last couple of Sundays about fire, and as a person is identified in the personality life, they are really immersed in the fire by friction. When we outgrow that stage, what happens is our consciousness slowly merges into a higher existence. And this is the fiery part of ourselves, the spiritual part of ourselves. It's when we move, our consciousness moves into, and we begin to realize the purpose of our life. When we realize that purpose of our life, we never forget it. The next incarnation we come in, we will come in at an earlier age of recollection of what that purpose is. Doing this, we become more, not less. We become more real, not less real. We become more awake, not less awake. We become more conscious, not less conscious. What is happening is that we are becoming real, increasingly fearless and enlightened. The teaching gives us an example. It says that in the beginning, we were just like an extinguished fire, a piece of charcoal. And part of the charcoal, but part of that charcoal was lit where the rest of it was still dark coal. This means then that the dark coal was the unrealized part of ourselves. Just a little bit was lit. Let us imagine this charcoal passes through 5 stages to become completely lit. So the first stage of fire covers your personality, in which that fire by friction, is helping you achieve mastery over your physical, emotional, and mental nature. So when your life is turning upside down and you don't know which way to go, and you're depressed and you're defaulting into bad habits and making your life worse and worse and worse, if you're lucky, there will be a point, a moment in time in which that little lit piece of coal will become a little brighter. And you'll have a glimpse that, wait a minute, I'm in charge of my life. I can do something different here. And then we begin to achieve mastery over our physical, emotional, mental body. It doesn't mean that we've reached perfection yet, but it means in reality what's happening is a door opens and reveals joy, reveals a little greater love. And again, if you're fortunate, you're going to have moments of bliss. Moments of bliss can be like we read about the saints, where they have moments of ecstasy. And we call this moments of bliss. For myself, when I was younger, my moments of bliss was experienced through music. Imagine sitting in the middle of 103 musicians, symphony orchestra, and this fantastic conductor. I think of this one guy I love so much. He was a Swede, and blonde, curly hair, really good looking. And he would just, man, he was really into that music, and he would be guttural sometimes, and particularly during rehearsals. But I would be in the middle of all of this, and I would have these experiences over and over and over again, where it's like I left my body. I didn't, but it felt like I left my body, and everything stood still. And that was a moment of ecstasy, or a moment of bliss. So you can imagine being a kid all the way up through high school and college, of having these moments of bliss while still struggling, as a teenager and as a college student. These moments of bliss is what we achieve in meditation when we make contact with our soul. It's so incredible. Moments like this take us into the second stage, where we fuse our personality with our soul, which is called soul infusion, where our advancing spiritual fire becomes one with our inner guide. The next stage of our soul-infused personality, at this stage, we realize that we are something greater than our physical body. Say, greater than our emotions, greater than our subconscious. What happens at this point is this is a stage where we have an awareness of our monad. And this is something that I'm not going to put into words. You have to have the experience yourself to have an awareness of your monad. The fire continues to progress, and in the next stage, the fourth stage, you unite with, and the only way I can put it is you unite with the aura of the planetary life. And you begin to feel yourself as a global being, that world disciple, one with the whole life in the globe. In the fifth stage, you realize that there is yet another phase of yourself to be realized. And this is the awareness of God consciousness, one with the solar logos. Now, this is, terminology. Solar logos is the terminology we find in the wisdom teaching. But God consciousness is what solar, being one with the solar logos means. It means God consciousness. To understand the path of meditation through a soul approach, you can read about the life of Saint Sergius, who had reached the fifth stage of consciousness, the God consciousness stage. Saint Sergius was an incarnation of Master Moria. Saint Sergius was an extraordinary person who throughout his life example showed us what is absolutely possible when one has God consciousness. One day, when Saint Sergius was serving the divine liturgy with his brother and nephew, Isaac the Quiet saw near the altar a fourth priest who was glowing with great light. See, this is not fiction. This is not science fiction. This is reality. This happened. Let your awareness open and your faith be strong and listen to this story. After the liturgy, two of the monks asked Saint Sergius what was going on. With their persistence, Saint Sergius finally answered, saying, "All right, if God revealed this to you, then I do not wish to hide it. That which you saw was an angel of the Lord, with whom I, although unworthy," see, he didn't say, because I'm the great one. He said in all humility, although unworthy, I always serve this angel, an angel of the Lord. He said, but do not tell anybody what you saw as long as I'm alive. On another occasion, St. Sergius was celebrating the divine liturgy in the presence of his disciple Simon, the ecclesiarch. Simon had an extraordinary vision. He said that during the liturgy he saw a fire which touched the table and surrounded the holy altar. At the moment of communion, the fire entered the chalice and the saint received communion in this manner. Seeing this, Simon was filled with terror and fear, saying to Saint Sergius, "Master, I never had such an awesome vision. I saw the grace of the Holy Spirit acting with you." The saint forbid him to talk about it. He says, "Do not tell anyone what you saw until I die." In every teaching, we find a symbol of this fiery ascent. The time is coming and is already near. Yet people will not know how to accept such fiery possibilities. Why not? Because it is not talked about in the family. Not even sometimes in their religion. Or if it is talked about in their religion, it's something way at the summit of the mountain, and we're the base. They were not told that we can have these experiences. And so our mind, even if we see it, says, no, I need to go see a psychiatrist. What I'm seeing is not real. And I'm sure not going to talk to my family about this. They'll think I'm crazy. We'll just talk about money. And then they know I'm sane. In their confusion, they will forget that fiery communion has been ordained by all the great ones. They will excel in counteracting instead of being filled with the power of the fire. Many mysteries, incomprehensible to the intellect, are revealed when you are in communion with the divine element of fire. Meditation is an effort to come in contact with your soul and the ability to translate the wisdom of your soul into thoughts to serve humanity as a whole, and to bring divine beauty and order into the world. In meditation, the activities of your higher mind are subjected to the direction and intention of the will of your soul. But I don't have time because I have to get to work in a half an hour. Well, let me tell you something. Change your job. Because I will guarantee you, when you begin to have direction and intention from the will of your soul, that will take precedence over anything in your life that is not real, that is transitory. So true meditation starts on the higher mental planes in serenity and fusion with the light of your soul. Meditation is not a suspended state of consciousness. It is not. It is when your whole being shares the light and energy generated in meditation through your soul's light. Your soul's light will then penetrate through your entire system as a kind of electricity. When in meditation and you come in contact with your soul, you begin to realize the fundamental principles of your soul and build your life upon the virtues and principles of the soul. It's very real. Meditation is the best method to bridge the gap between your lower and higher mind. The higher level is the world of your inner guide, the abstract levels of the mind through which you begin to contact the universe. The lower level of the mental body is found in both darkness and light. It is a reflection, this lower mind is a reflection of the many life experiences of your spark, the unfolding human soul. life experiences that are stored in your mental unit, again, these are terminology in the teaching, which you want to know more about it, pick up some books and read about it. Right now, if you don't have definitions, just open your mind and let the light of your intuition come in and help you have an understanding of how life experiences can be stored in your mental unit, the astral permanent atom and the physical permanent atom. The mass of humanity presently functions in this lower mind, and as a result repeats the past, which acts out through your subconscious mind. The lower mind is the subconscious. Now, meditation is the art of thinking. During this process, our evolving human soul, our evolving spark, if you will, is presenting a question or a need to the light of our capital S soul through this little bridge called the Antakarana, the tiny bridge. The soul is anchored in the lotus. Our soul is anchored, capital S soul is anchored in the lotus on the 3 higher mental planes. But this is important, it mostly functions in the spiritual triad. So it's anchored in your lotus, but mainly functions in the spiritual triad. When your question or need reaches a degree of high frequency, it evokes a direct answer from your soul. The answer coming from your soul comes in either as an idea or as a wave of energy. Sometimes when it comes in as a wave of energy, you feel like you're going out of your body, or you feel like you're going to swoon, or you feel like you're going to pass out, but you don't. It's a wave of electrical energy that passes through your entire system. It's very momentary. And then for the following weeks and months and sometimes years, you're flooded with ideas that eventually come into manifestation through your own effort. Ideas can be placed in your mental atmosphere not only by your soul, but by your master, or by your own consciousness if you are advanced enough to reach the intuitional plane. Meditation teaches you how to communicate with your capital S soul, as well as the soul of others. Meditation is a journey, and it is a journey toward the one self, toward the inner light, toward the source of love and power within us. Without meditation, the teaching explains it is impossible to progress on the path. Meditation is a process of touching or contacting the treasure within yourself. As you touch that center of power and glory, you're integrated. Now, see, this is about stage 2. Your integrated physical, emotional, and mental vehicles become charged with power and joy. Your personality vehicles function through the energy that's coming from your soul. And this energy is called psychic energy. actually, psychic energy is going to be the theme of our conference in March. So just, if you're interested in psychic energy, come to White Mountains Conference in March, and you're going to experience it, you're going to learn about it, you're going to participate in the experience of psychic energy. And you'll walk away from that conference a very different person. The higher state of consciousness. So you're invited to attend. Meditation is a process of formulating and translating those impressions and inspiration that pours into your mind at the time you have soul contact. Meditation is a noble tool, for it helps us to think and act and speak and write more creatively. If you still have a smut mouth, pardon me for being so coarse, but if you still have a smut mouth, that means you speak coarsely, you act coarsely, you walk coarsely, clumsily, so on and so forth. That means it's time for you to jump on board and begin to practice meditation, because it helps us to think and act and speak and write more creatively and in accordance with the highest good for all of humanity. It increases your capacity to serve, to understand people and their problems, and to meet their needs creatively. It helps you to remain in the light of your soul, so it's no longer a momentary experience, but sustained. And you can act from that high level, becoming a fountain of inspiration and courage and power for your friends and co-workers and those in need. Meditation also breaks the limitations which attachment imposes on us and on our thinking, because in meditation our consciousness is lifted up into the purpose, into the direction, into the goal of our soul. Your soul leads you to people and places and books and events through whom and through which you learn and expand and follow the path of your inner calling and fulfill your creative urges. The mental plane is a very mysterious realm of consciousness, but to begin meditation, it is necessary to coordinate your mental plane. You've got to do it. The mental plane is a sphere of light, and in this sphere there are billions, if you can imagine this, that there are billions of tiny atoms darting about, billions of them. These tiny atoms have 7 hues or 7 different colors of yellow, which represents the level of the mental plane. But the atoms with their different hues are intermingled. Now imagine this. Imagine that these tiny atoms are gradually forming geometric patterns, creating a symphony of color on the mental plane. And at this highest point is the magnificent form of a lotus, acting as the inspirational point of this great symphony of color and radiation. This is why people are drawn to these images of the lotus, because their soul will recognize the symbol of the real plant or the drawing. Meditation organizes the mental sphere into a living color symphony in which each hue is sensitive to what? To impression. to impression. So it's a receiving agent. Meditation then unfolds the bud of your lotus, the bud, B-U-D, the bud of your lotus, making it a radioactive, fiery lotus, which then transmits light and love and power from the solar angel to the personality, that integrated personality. That's alignment. The goal of meditation is not only the transformation of your nature, but also to enable you to pass from your human nature to your divine nature, where you can experience the reward of your long and strenuous labor in meditation. Once you have made this breakthrough, you enter into your divine heritage. Saint Sergius. Hey. You discover that a different life exists beyond the level of the human life. You feel the presence of your soul and even meet your soul. This leads you to your master, who will be in charge of your spiritual development, because you're ready in the world and during your higher meditations. This is why I love Agni Yoga. Agni Yoga is the path that leads you to these experiences. Through meditation, soul contact is established, and you, the disciple, strive to bring the radiation of that contact into your daily life, your life expressions through intelligent love, service, purity of motive, gratitude, joy, simplicity, courage, and the practice of harmlessness. I could talk a lot about that, but I won't, because I only have half a minute left. Our contact with the soul becomes closer and more frequent. This increases your magnetism, and eventually your aura becomes so magnetic that you begin to register the impressions coming from the hierarchical plan, or even from Christ himself. You gradually adapt all your life expressions to the divine plan and function as a disciple of the great ones. So meditation is a process in which your inner guide watches your threefold lower nature, your personality, and pours into you, into this threefold nature, light and love and spiritual power. The radiation of these three energies into your daily life and environment is called service. Service for the greater good. Through service for the greater good, your human soul contacts the inner light. And in that light, he sees the greater light. And that greater light is the Christ. So I leave you with this as we go into these beautiful days of preparation for Christmas and the winter solstice. Think about today's talk. Think about meditation and the opportunity that meditation brings you. And let that be your focus over these coming days.